Hello, good morning, and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast, hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and fellow Forest fan from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow?
Good morning, Richard. Happy Thanksgiving to you over there in Oklahoma, USA.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to those on the other side of the pond here in the U.S. Yeah. Well, man, what a great show that was. That was like my favorite show as a kid from a sitcom standpoint. So that was brilliant. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
I want to start by offering thanks to you for being a good friend, and that's why I thought that would be an appropriate intro music for you today. All right, let's move forwards. As yes, this is indeed the Talking Reds Thanksgiving special, as we preview the big game at the City Ground this weekend as Nottingham Forest host Premier League new boys Ipswich Town. After back-to-back defeats, can the Reds get back to winning ways against a team sat in the bottom three, but still showing grit and determination, as seen in their last result, which was, of course, that draw against Manchester United? So, to sieve through it all with Richard and I, we're in the company of Paul Morley and resident stat guru Danscape. Gentlemen, good morning. How are you, Paul?
Very well, thank you. Good, yeah. Reinvigorated after, some pretty not miserable. I think is the wrong word, but just uninspiring performances. I think we get back to winning ways this week.
Outstanding. Danscape, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Good, nice sunny day here at Sheffield. So it's feeling like just about getting a little bit Christmassy towards the end of the year.
Fantastic. Don't forget to join in with us in the chat and drop comments. We want to say hello to you. So if you don't let us know you're here, then we can't do that. Of course, maybe you are listening to this later on Apple or Spotify with those headphones on. Maybe you're doing some wrapping of presents, some early Christmas presents being wrapped, perhaps. We thank you for joining us as well. All right. We ask you to hit like and subscribe, because it does us a massive favor.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on the pathway towards 1,000 subscribers. We're kind of edging towards 850 still. It's going slowly. That dream of 1,000 might not quite come to fruition, but we're still going to keep trying. So if you can reach into the YouTube button and give it a push, if you're on Apple or Spotify, it's also great if you can follow us on those platforms. Okay, let's get into it. General match thoughts ahead of this weekend. Richard, how are you feeling about this one?
Feeling a lot better because the reports are that we'll get Morgan Gibbs-White back as well as Elliot Anderson. So much needed depth in that midfield area and definitely much needed creation to hopefully generate more opportunities, because there was few and far between. I think 0 shots on target against Arsenal. So I think we'll see that improve clearly, but there's players on that team that we got to be cognizant of. Those like Liam Delap. I'm sure we'll get into some of the specifics of their players, but yeah, that's one for sure that we've got to be conscious of. But we've got the giant, wonderful Serbian in the back to help manage that for us, as he's been doing all season. So yeah, very confident. I think they're going to be a little bit more galvanized. They're going to gel a little bit differently. They're going to have a different mentality coming in to this match, being at home, being against a team that we should beat at the bottom of the table. So confident, feeling good.
A quick early morning and hello to Tim Shipman, and a big thank you to Mark Warwell for his £2 super chat. He's looking forward to seeing Jota Silva make his full debut, and we'll chat more about that later. Mark, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being with us this morning. Danscape, I know we've got some stats of yours to look at later. We'll get to those, but just give us a quick summary of how you're feeling about the Ipswich game at the City Ground on Saturday.
I think it's an interesting one because they are like us when we first came up in 22-23. That team that's been out of the Premier League for quite a while, back in there probably earlier than they expected to be in terms of getting promotion, sort of having to adapt to that. But where they're different to us is they've got more stability behind the scenes, I think, and a little bit more long-term planning at the time than we probably had. And I think that's shown in their start to life in the Premier League, whereby they've not lost too many. They've managed to get draws out of games where they might have lost. Whereas when we came up that first season, we seemed to lose games that we should be drawing. And so it will be interesting to see how much of a gap there is between us and them now on the day on Saturday, if we're at full strength, which I think is the main sort of caveat on predictions for the result. I think is if we're at full strength, not too worried. If we've got those injury doubts and we don't put that first sort of 11 out, then there's a chance that they could at least dampen us. I don't think we're at risk of losing, but it's football.
Back-to-back defeats for the first time in the Premier League this season, Paul. How important is it to get back to not just not losing, but to winning ways on Saturday?
I wouldn't say it's a must-win game, but I think coming back to your point about back-to-back defeats, I think, and this is by no means saying that we should take Ipswich lightly. I think, as everyone said, and I'm sure we'll carry on to say that, they're a well-drilled outfit, well-coached, and not going to make it easy. But if you wanted to pick a fixture that you wanted to go into off the back of 2 defeats in a row, it would be a newly promoted team in the bottom 3 at home for sure. So, as an opportunity to get back to winning ways, I don't think they come much better than this. And I think the onus is on us to take that. So, I like Rich said, I think I'm confident, but without being overconfident. And I'm pretty sure, as you said, the return of the likes of Gibbs White, if indeed that's the case, and Anderson will, a bit like what Arteta said about having their talisman back ahead of the Forest game, just a different energy about the squad probably in training this week. If those guys are in and around it and are there, hopefully that gives everyone a lift and they can go and take the 3 points.
Yeah, it was interesting last week. We talked about the impact that Martin Odegaard had on Arsenal, and we know he's a fantastic player. And in fact, I think he's just getting better and better. And he's an MVP for them. It's evident that when he's not playing, that their midfield isn't running in the same way. And so for him to choose to not go away with Norway and to get, as fit as possible and to come back. And a lot of people were saying last Saturday that the Arsenal game for them was a bit of a must win if they wanted to stay in the title race. And that puts pressure on. And at home, the Arsenal fans can get on the Arsenal players' backs. And I felt it was an opportunity for us to really kind of go at Arsenal and put them under pressure, but it just didn't happen. And I felt Martin Odegaard ran the show, ran the midfield. He is a talisman for them. So, like you say, Paul, for us to maybe find some of that ourselves, we need to have Morgan Gibbs-White back, Richard, don't we? Or at least Elliot Anderson. How important is at least one of those two can slot back into that number 10 role and get not just the midfield working, but the transition play from the midfield into the attack working in the way that we've had it so far this season?
Yeah, I think there's some, speaking of a sort of an intangible sort of element, it's an innate confidence, right? I think you guys were talking about with Arsenal, so akin to that, being able to have someone like that on your team should give you that confidence. I mean, this is an England national player. He's clearly been one of the most important players on the squad, one of the guys that you would absolutely, write in ink every time as first on the team sheet. And so that is going to bring some of that, because that's where we've been our best, is when we play with that level of confidence that we've had. And it sort of seemed to wane a little bit, during the Newcastle match, and then only continued and got worse against Arsenal. But then you look at statistically, I think Dan showed a graphic a couple episodes ago where he was second, Morgan was, on shot creation. And so he's definitely impactful in terms of, as you mentioned, the variety of things he can do, how versatile he is, how much energy and effort he puts in, that work rate concept as he does, getting back on defense, getting things moving forward, orchestrating things, getting things set up, and then it's similar with Anderson, right? And then but his ability to drop back and to provide coverage to whoever is going to be on the wing, in particular Omari Hutchinson, right? He's a very talented young player, so another guy you want to be cognizant of, and you want to try to help Alex Moreno cover. So having that kind of ability come back and the kind of energy, and he's got some physicality to him as well, and he's good on the ball. So there's a lot that both those players offer, and so you just can't diminish what that's going to mean to the team, just in terms of infusing some confidence.
We know about the midfield or players missing from the midfield Danscape. Sangari and Danilo have been out for quite a while now. Looks like Danilo could be coming back. There's been some pictures of him looking like he's back in training or looking like he's getting more involved. So, that to have him back at some point soon is going to be really, really good for us. But if we think about the midfield for this game, following James Ward-Prowse not particularly impressing last weekend, following the amount of games that Ryan Yates has had and Dominguez have been having, do you see us going back to that 4-2-3-1 formation that's tried and tested? And also thinking about the wingers as well. I mean, lots of people talking about Anthony Elanga. Maybe it's time for him to step down. And equally, people were going in a bit heavy on Callum Hudson-Odoi as well. And we talked about a possibility of Jota Silva coming in and also Ramon Sosa coming in. You mentioned on X this week that, you are a Jota Silva fan, but you see him more effective in a number 10 role, not the same kind of number 10 that Morgan is, and not the same kind of number 10 perhaps that Elliot is. So with that in mind, what do you think is going to happen on the right side, particularly with Elanga versus Jota?
On the right side, what do I think is going to happen? I think he goes with Elanga still. I get that impression that I think Elanga's doing enough. It's obviously very hard to judge against that Arsenal game because we had 3 or 4 chances in that entire game to really exploit any opportunity on the wide area. So I don't think you can judge Elanga on that performance. Against Newcastle, similarly, he didn't quite perform, but he was still the outlet for us. He still did get into the positions to threaten them. And so I think Nuno still chooses Elanga over Jota for this one. And I think it's useful to have Jota on the bench as an option to fill either of those roles as the game goes on. Because if we assume that Morgan does start, but that, say, Anderson isn't fit, then Jota can come on and replace Morgan at 60 minutes or so, to conserve Morgan's injury risk and fill in that role. Whereas if he's already been playing on the wing, Elanga doesn't really suit coming into the number 10. He is pretty much a winger. So I think it suits probably to have Jota on the bench as an option to fill either role as we see the game going on than to probably start him. And obviously we know he's got his kind of chaos energy that he brings in those late stages. And I think that benefits us. There's not necessarily a reason to sort of rush to change that. So I think that's where I am on the right side. And
in the midfield in general?
I'd go back to Yates, Dominguez, Gibbs-White basically as that 3 if we can. If the fitness is there, let's go back to what was working for us. Let's not forget, before these last 2 disappointing games, we took the game straight to West Ham at home and we dominated that game. Obviously, partly in the second half because of the red card, but even in the first half, we dominated it. They didn't get a shot on target until right at the end of the half. So we've got to go back to that setup basically and remember that that's how good we were before we faced 2 very good teams, and not forget that we won 3 games in a row before that, which we've not done in the Premier League till now. So I think we go back to that.
I want to say good morning to Matt Wooten. Thanks for being with us, Matt. Mark also wanted to say that he feels a really positive result is necessary to give us momentum for the 2 upcoming away fixtures in Manchester. Good morning to Big Arn. He feels that 4 points from these next 4 games are essential on what we should be targeting. He's also mentioning as well is Elanga fit. There's a chance that Elanga might have picked up a knock. So of course that would rule him out of the starting 11 if that's the case. Paul, last week we saw Taiwo Awoniyi starting, which I guess wasn't such a major surprise because we were factoring in the travel time for Chris Wood. And Taiwo's minutes have been quite limited this season. And for a period of time, I was feeling quite comfortable with that he was really not being rushed back. And that you can never accuse Forest of rushing Taiwo Awoniyi back this season in any way, shape or form, following his injuries. And the form of Chris Wood meant that obviously we're going to stick with Chris Wood. Now, I expect Chris Wood to start this Saturday. I expect him to come back in. But is it as straightforward as that? Is there a case for Taiwo keeping his place?
I would put Wood back in, assuming that he's fully fit. What I would say, however, is I think of a game of very few positives for Forest last week. Taiwo getting the amount of time on the pitch that he did was probably one big positive I took away, and I thought he actually did pretty well. He didn't have a lot of service, but as and when the ball came to him, he seemed to hold it up pretty nicely, brought other people into play. He did as much as he could have done with the service that he had, I thought. So, I thought that was a really good exercise for Taiwo in getting him. And I know he didn't score, so obviously, confidence in terms of in front of goal still probably needs some work. But confidence in just the fact that he can mix it, and he's up there against Saliba and Gabriel, pretty much two best defenders in Europe, you would say, best centre back pairing in Europe at the moment. So I thought he did well. I thought it was a good exercise, and I think as and when in future, let's say on Saturday, if he comes on for the last 25-30 minutes, he'll be all the better for having had that hour, 65 minutes, whatever it was last week at Arsenal.
Just sticking with you, Paul, how important is that first goal for him, for Taiwo? He hasn't scored this season. Obviously, his minutes have been tight. I mean, how important can a first goal be for a player? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we know Taiwo's a streaky sort of striker, isn't he? Once he gets one that goes in, he just needs one to go in off his backside, doesn't he? Or like that one that he shinned in against West Ham at the start of the season a couple of seasons ago. Just something like that to just get him on the road and get him going. And I think, as we've seen from him, on numerous occasions, once he gets one, he can go on and get 2 and 3 and go on a streak. Assuming obviously that is that he's getting minutes. So yeah, I think it is important for any striker. Goals are essentially what brings you the most confidence, no matter how well you're doing and contributing. Aside from that, a goal's going to be important for him. So yeah, I think hopefully we may well see that on Saturday if he gets half an hour, 25 minutes, and he can show us remind us all of his qualities and get back on the score sheet, and that'll be almost a perfect sort of outcome if we win and Taiwo gets on the score sheet.
Ipswich, as I think Dan touched on earlier, are quite similar to us in our first season, coming up after 22, 23 years away from the top league. And they've got some very effective, very good players. And they'll fancy themselves against most teams, I would say. Picking up a draw against Man United last week. Now, I know that lots of people have had plenty to say about Manchester United because under Ten Hag, they seem to be quite anemic, really, is the best thing I can think of. Lacking, and Ruben Amorim coming in for his first game, obviously got off to a flyer with that goal early on, but they then got pegged back. So it's too early to say, how much the Ipswich result, the 1-1 result against United was Ipswich being pretty good or United just being not quite out of their rut yet. They're going to come to the City ground, Richard, and look to, take on a team in Nottingham Forest who've just lost 2 games, and one of those was a home game against Newcastle. Thinking about our lineup, how important is it that Nuno gets his lineup spot on? I'll put the FOTMob on the screen, and it's showing the team that started the last game. So we've talked about personnel changes, we talked about who might start and so on. Just give us your team as you see it for this one, and I'll make some changes as you're speaking.
Yeah, so I'm assuming and probably just blindly hoping that Morgan Gibbs-White's back. So I want to move Yates back to Ward-Prowse, yeah. And then I'm actually going to go with, if Anderson's healthy, I'd like to see him in place of Dominguez. It's not that I think Dominguez has played poorly. I think Dan kind of referenced it. Everyone sort of played poorly in the last match against Arsenal, and they just really overran us in the middle of the park. So you want to have some of that stoutness and that ability to sort of maintain position and space and manage space better. And so Wood, get him out of there. Awani, love him, but put Wood at the top. And then I would actually, maybe it's just a general curiosity of the kind of effort and the kind of time that Jota can put in for an entire match. Can he put a full 90? And I doubt that would be the case if he started. But I'm going to say Jota comes in for Elanga. It just feels like the right time to do that. I know it's always difficult when you look at how Leif Davis plays. he's gonna bomb up the left side. He's gonna try to press us on that side of the pitch, and try to crossing the ball in. I think he's got the most assists on the team, so they're gonna play through him a lot. Surprisingly, their actual percent of attacking is pretty balanced across all areas of the pitch, left, right, left, center, and right. But they tend to dominate a little bit more on the right, which is interesting because you would think with Leif Davis being more of the assist guy, that would be where it happens. But I think the way that Jota plays too, he can drop back really well. In terms of trying to help out from a defensive standpoint if needed. Obviously, that's a major gap for Callum in terms of his ability. But I think the way that Callum seems at this stage to have more of a capability of potentially scoring a goal, I think they've got a young right back as well, so he could probably take advantage of him. So this feels like it's probably more of what we might see. Just because I think there's some curiosity around what Jota can give from a work rate, from an energy, from a impact standpoint. Dan's not wrong. He'll probably talk about he gets dispossessed, right? He tends to want to carry the ball a lot, and he can get dispossessed, but he can also do some things on the ball, and he's really quick to cross the ball in, which I like. It may not always be the most accurate each time, but the fact is he's trying to get that ball into wood and take advantage of his height and his ability aerially. So I'd love to see what happens with this kind of lineup.
So for those listening, Richard is sticking with Moreno left back, Aina right back, centre backs of Barillo and Milenkovic, 2 in the midfield of Anderson Yates, the 3 of Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs White in the 10, and Jota Silva on the right with Wood up top. Okay, Danscape, over to you. What changes would you make to this team? Let's think about what team you would pick. Not what you think Nuno's going to pick, but what team would you pick?
I would pick the team that started against West Ham, which would be Dominguez Yates, Gibbs White, and Elanga basically back in there. Just on the Wood via Awoniyi thing, I think Chris Wood was one of the big misses last week against Arsenal. Not so much in an attacking sense, but in a defensive organisation of that front three. It felt like at times we just had too many new relationships in there because Yates was playing that unfamiliar position further forward. So he kind of had a new relationship to build with Awoniyi. I can't imagine we've played often in training with Awoniyi and Yates as the sort of front two. So that was kind of a new partnership in the middle. There was a new partnership, obviously, in the wide areas with Yates playing further forward. Then Dominguez and Ward-Prowse haven't played together before as a two. So there's just too many new relationships last week that it looked like that on the pitch. People didn't know where to be. So I think I'd go back to what we've tried, what we've proven can win 3 games in a row, pretty much with the same lineup. And I just don't see any reason why we hopefully won't be able to go with that, take the lead, and see the game out with our super subs towards the end of the game. And maybe, like we say, hopefully get Taiwo a goal late on once the game's a bit more stretched.
So Danscape is suggesting Dominguez Yates in the midfield, same back four as Richards, Elanga on the right for Jota Silva. Same team, as you say, that started the West Ham game, bit tried and tested. It was a team that was, I think, unchanged for 2 or 3 in a row, in fact. So getting back to that team might get us back on the winning pathway. Paul Morley, what are you thinking? What team would you select for Saturday? Something similar or something different?
It feels to me we might just have reached that tipping point where it's time for Jota. And this is nothing against Elanga. I think he's still got loads to offer. I just see a bit of similarity with Elanga at the moment as to, if you think back a couple of years, Brennan was going through a similar sort of spell and just nothing was quite working for him. And I think Cooper took him out of the firing line for a couple of weeks and he came back sort of hungrier and better for it. So just feels perhaps that we've reached that tipping point. I do, however, kind of give credence to what Danscape's saying about particularly fitness of Gibbs White and Anderson, and if they're in the team and they're not able to give us more than 60 minutes, then maybe Silva might be best utilised from a bench. But let's assume that let's go blue sky thinking everybody's fully fit. And I think again I'll probably go with Richard. I think I'd love to see Anderson back in starting lineup, which again is harsh on Dominguez, but so without sort of repeating what Rich has said, I think if I was picking a team to start this game, and I think again if we were playing a top 6 or top 8 side at home, possibly wouldn't go with Anderson and Silva in the same lineup along with Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi. But I just feel if you're gonna do that and not experiment is the wrong word, but sort of try something a little bit different with Jota coming in. I think this could be the game to do it. I just one thing I would say. I know we've all very much quickly dismissed Ward-Prowse, and I think I don't think there's any argument to that. I've seen him getting a lot of stick, particularly for his performance last week, and I just a few words in a little bit of defence of Ward-Prowse, because I think up until the point where he got the red card at Chelsea, he had contributed well to at Liverpool in the Chelsea game itself. Since he got sent off at Chelsea, he had literally zero. Well, I think he came on for the last 2 minutes plus injury time at Newcastle. Against Newcastle. Prior to that, he was obviously ineligible to play against West Ham. He didn't feature against Leicester. Before that, he'd been obviously suspended for the Palace game. So in sort of 6 weeks, he played 7-8 minutes of football, and he probably wasn't down to start that game against Arsenal either. I think it was, I think the noises coming out it was a pretty late sort of change when Gibbs White pulled out. So probably wasn't in the mindset that he was going to be starting that game either. And yeah, he was a bit off it, but I guess arguably you can expect that after 6 weeks with no minutes of first team football. So as much as I wouldn't play him, I just think it's worth making that point before people start dismissing him completely, that I still think he's got something to offer once he gets sort of back in the swing of having some minutes in the side.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's well made. I think you're absolutely right. He's not just suddenly become a bad player. We, as football fans, we know we can be quite fickle. Get rid of him. What a load of rubbish. Send him back. I think the amount of time that he wasn't playing will come into it. Shaking off the rust sometimes takes a game or two. I still wouldn't start him this game, but I'm not ready to write him off. I personally like the look of that team that you picked there, and I probably would go with the same, except for I would keep Nico Dominguez in. I think that with Gibbs White and Anderson both coming back from injury, it might be that they share the game again. So one of them starts, one of them finishes. So we get them through and we don't overload them too much. I think Nico Dominguez has shown again that he is a quality player and was getting lauded for some of his performances. I agree that it is Jota time. I like the idea of Anthony Elanga off the bench if fit. I mean, it could be that he's out completely, and so that negates that point. But if they're all fit and firing, I think it is Jota time. And we've seen Anthony Elanga come off the bench for Forest in games past, against Arsenal last season, against Chelsea last season. He's come off the bench, and his pace and his energy in the second half can cause them problems, especially with Leif Davis, who we know likes to get forward from left back. And we'll talk more about him with Danscape a bit later on and some of the stats that he's got. But there are hopefully going to be some gaps in their left back area, which Jota can exploit and Anthony can exploit later on. The one other change that I'm tempted to make, and I'm kind of asking myself, am I just tempted to make this for the sake of just making the change and just giving, or is there more to it? And the one place I'm looking at is actually a left back. Now, I like Alex Moreno. I think he's a good player, and I like a settled back four. But I also think in this game, it could be that we put Nico in. Nico's been a great player for us. He's only been getting off the bench lately. Whether Nico starts at left back or right back, to be confirmed, to be decided. But I wouldn't be totally against Nico Williams coming in for this game. I want Aina to stay in, or Aina, Ola. But if it was felt that Alex Moreno might step out for Nico, then I could get on board with that. Because I think that it's important that players get minutes. If you go too long where you're not getting a start, you're not getting a chance in games, and you're not utilising the squad, then I think you could be in danger of picking up more injuries, picking up more suspensions. On that note, Ryan Yates, Richard, is on 4 yellow cards. If he picks up another, then he will have a game suspension. Off the top of my head, there's another 2 or 3 that are on 3 yellows. And it could put in danger the long run that Forest have had of having an academy graduate on their first team squad for a match day. It's gone stretched back over several years. So if Yatesy was to miss out, then I think we could be in danger of that record going. That's just a small little caveat on the side. But I mean, how important has Ryan Yates been in this last set of fixtures? When he started the season on the bench, Sangare, Danilo, and then others are getting picked ahead of him. You know, we've talked about him lots and lots and lots. But would you want him to go out there and just be careful? Would you want him to just go out and play his normal game?
I don't think he possesses the ability to be careful. I just don't think that's not the value that he offers, right? It's the way that he I keep using this phrase, but the psychological warfare of having a guy like that who can draw fouls, who can get in ahead of opposing players, especially those that are creative in the middle of the park. You could make the case that maybe not so much oriented around the yellow card situation, but he feels like a better option against the Manchester City away, right? We've tended to believe that in the past as well. That tends to be where he provides value because he does create issues and he does cause problems and disrupts in that manner. So I might, maybe it's not completely out of not that we want to make a lot of wholesale changes in the squad because we've seen such continuity. And that's what he provides. It's a steadiness. It's a leadership. He's vocal. He's talking to guys on set pieces. He's doing a variety of things that we probably don't even understand the full depth of. Because I think Dan and I've talked about this even offline about how it's hard to measure his impact sometimes because his S-housery and his other intangibles are difficult to measure. But I think this may be a circumstance that you could make the case for him coming out and maybe keeping Dominguez and Anderson in together if Anderson's fit. But I don't think Nuno will do that. I think he has a lot of trust in him. He is the captain of the team, both on the pitch and the overall captain for the squad in general. So you don't want to understate how much value that brings. And I think all of the guys see him in that way, and they love his presence. And I think Nuno does as well. It's a guy you can always trust to give the same level of performance virtually week in and week out, even if he has to manage it slightly because you don't want that yellow card and you don't want to put your depth at any more risk when it's been at risk in that midfield area.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not quite sure that he will leave Ryan Yates out to protect him. I like what you're saying about going away to Man City and away to Man United. He's the type of player you definitely want. So, it wouldn't be beyond all the realms of possibility that, Yates is rested and Ward-Prowse and Dominguez and others pick up the slack for this one. It wouldn't surprise me that we see more changes than we expect. I don't want to see too many, but obviously Nuno has a squad to play with. Right, Dan, you've got your usual. I'm a scat man. Over to the stat man. What have we got for you? I think this is the first one we've got, which is looking at Ipswich and Forest players in terms of successful dribbles, shot creating actions, and expected goals. Over to you, Daniel San.
Yes, so shot creating actions is my favourite stat this season. That's always popping up because I think it shows the sort of the 2 or 3 moves before a shot happens. So that shows you who's involved the most in our team and the opposition team actually creating chances for the team. So it goes a bit beyond assists. So looking at that column first off, shot creating actions in the middle there for Ipswich. Leif Davis is at the top there with basically 4. He's involved in creating 4 shots per game, which is the most for any defender in the Premier League this season as a per 90-minute stat. So more than like Pedro Porro at Spurs, other attacking fullbacks like that you can imagine, he's up there. Now, a lot of that is because of set pieces. He seems to take most of Ipswich's set pieces. So that's a big factor. But in open play as well, I think they, touching on what Richard said earlier, they attack down the right, but they sort of do that to leave space for Davis to get into an advanced forward on the opposite side, feed the ball to him, and to him to cross the ball into the box. I don't think he's a dribbling player as such. He's not going to take everybody on and create a chance that way, but he's got very good delivery. And they've got a couple of good strikers that are, smart movement, pretty good physically in the box to get on the end of those crosses. So I think that's a danger area for us big time is Leif Davis on there. From their left back position, getting into advanced position and putting the ball into the box. So yeah, that's to sort of highlight that side of Ipswich's threat. I highlighted Aina and Moreno in our stats just to compare the difference there. So if Davis is contributing to sort of 4 shots per game, Aina is contributing to 2, so like half as much, and Moreno's half again. So that's showing how much more impact he's having from a fullback position than our two fullbacks at the minute. Jumping left on successful dribbles was just to show that Hutchinson is kind of quite a sort of elite level dribbler, taking on players in this league. He's in the top 5 or 6, I think, in the Premier League at the minute for per 90 minutes beating his man. So that's something to watch out for. If he's in tight spaces, he can still create a chance from those wide areas. And then expected goals is a little bit less surprising. They've got Smodic and Delap both up there, who are getting on to the end of all these chances that the likes of Davis and Hutchinson are creating. And yeah, that's just to sort of indicate those threats.
Okay. And we've got a couple more to go through. So this is more Forest versus Ipswich in a few different areas. Tell us about these ones, Daniel San.
Yes, so this is the sort of percentile of the teams in the league. But they're ranking within the league on these different metrics. So league positions at the top there, just to illustrate where the teams are. And then when you look at the bars below, if you're sort of above or below that, you're outperforming or underperforming your league position, if you like. So in terms of goal scoring, both teams are in the bottom 50% of attacking sides there. So neither team are scoring a bag load of goals. Goals against is the difference, whereby we're in that top 25% of the league still defensively, even despite our last 2 games. Ipswich are in the bottom 15% defensively. So, we should still go into this confident of a clean sheet from our end, I think. Goals for home and away, we're actually in the bottom 35% in terms of the number of goals we scored at home, which I think is where this game becomes a test, is that we've got to go out and actually create and take our chances to get a win, even against, the teams that we're hoping to beat. Ipswich aren't actually too bad away from home. They're sort of 45%, so they're sort of mid-table for scoring goals away from home. And I suppose, again, just goals against is the last 2. So again, we're in that top 20% defensively at home, and Ipswich defensively away are in the bottom 10%. So the game comes down to us scoring our chances, I think. I think we will have chances. If we take them, we probably win it.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Possession and shots. Yeah,
so I'll just pick out the sort of the most interesting parts here, which is, if I can remember from when I did it, in terms of crosses, I think crosses was interesting that we're kind of an average team for the number of crosses we put in, but Ipswich actually don't put that many crosses in, and they don't dribble that much, and they don't kind of carry the ball that much. I think what this shows is that a lot of their chances come from set pieces, which I think is on one of the other slides further on, because they're scoring a few goals and they're doing okay away from home. But I think they are more of a set piece team than people perhaps realise, and that's for a side that's just promoted. Number of shots, obviously we have a lot more shots than they do, sort of 45%. We're in that top. Well, we're just in the bottom half there. They're right down the bottom. But their chance quality there, if you look at XG per shot and the average shot distance, i.e. the closer they are to goal, they are sort of in the mid-table park there. So when they do get their chances, they tend to be higher quality chances than ours. And we're actually right down the bottom in terms of we have a lot of shots that are very low quality at the minute.
Okay. And then there's one final slide you've got for us, which is looking at Forest and Ipswich defensively.
Yeah, so the defensive stats are generally what you'd expect. As we know, is we are very good defensively, generally in that top 10, 20% in the league still. Ipswich generally on defensive stats in terms of number of shots and the quality of chances they give away are generally in the bottom 20% of the league. One interesting one is goalkeeper. Obviously, Muric, which we had a brief spell with back in the day, is outperforming Sells in terms of his kind of saves that he's not expected to make. So he's kind of in the mid-table for goalkeeper there at the minute, and Sells has sort of dropped into that bottom 25% of letting in chances that statistically, wouldn't be allowed, which is always up for debate in terms of the accuracy of the stats. And that was the main one to point out, really. There, the others I think are as you'd expect, that we're very good defensively compared to most teams at the minute.
Okay. Thank you very much, as ever, for your usual fantastic slides, Mr. Danscape, the stat man. Time for some score predictions. Paul, I'll come to you first. What are you thinking for this one, mate?
Yeah, just on the stats thing, I don't know if you covered it there, Dan. I don't know if you know the answer. I'm pretty sure that Ipswich, are they the lowest, bottom of the league in terms of XG created for all teams in the league, I think? From one particular source that I looked at anyway. So I think 2-0 Forest. I think clean sheet incoming, 2-0.
2-0 Forest for Paul. Okay, Richard, what do you think?
I'm going to go with my heart on this one. So I'm going to say 3-0 Forest. I think we get a clean sheet. I think we get back to winning ways, and we do it at home. The Fortress provides that needed jolt of joy that we have to have right now coming off those 2 losses. And I think Morgan provides a lot of energy and comes back and really plays off the crowd. So I'm going to go 3-0 Forest.
So Paul's gone 2-0. Richard's gone 3-0. Daniel-san, what are you saying?
I'm going with 2-0 as well, I think. I think 2-0 seems the right balance.
2-0, okay. I'm going to say 1-0. 1-0 to Forest. I think we've come across a few issues in the last couple of games at different times. And to suggest that we're going to be at home where we've not been amazing this season, but we were good against West Ham, but we've been a little bit up and down. I still think we'll win, but I think it could be quite a tight game. Ipswich do have some important and some very effective players. But I'm going to say 1-0. I'm going to say Chris Wood because I think he's due a goal for us again. So 1-0 to the Forest. If you've got any score predictions in the comments, please do put them up. Big Arn thinks it might be 3-1. I want to say good morning to Ian Wigington from cold, snowy Toronto. Hey, how you doing, Ian? Good to have you with us, buddy. Forest Rye says, good morning, all. I think we will win, but we must turn up and perform whatever the starting lineup. Smash the like on the way in. Thank you so much for that. If you can also smash the like on the way in, we love it when you do that. Like, subscribe, hit all the buttons. Find the button, give it a little twiggle, give it a little wobble. And, it always helps us out when you can hit that button. Okay, right. Let's move on. We want to say a quick thank you to our main sponsor, the Cheese Trader. It's that time again, Dan.
This York shop is a cheese lover's paradise. The Cheese Trader is home to an array of fine British cheeses, not only selling it but offering an epic cheesy street food menu too. Guests can choose from a main dish and then select all the different types of cheese they'd like on top, alongside an array of other toppings. We tried their loaded fries and posh cheese toasties, both of which were absolutely smothered in gorgeous melted cheddar. We even chose a whole camembert to top our fries, which was so tasty, like a cheesy salt and pepper dish. The posh cheese on toast was some of the best toast we've ever had, with so many amazing flavours to it that perfectly paired with the cheese, tucked away just off Grape Lane. This is the perfect spot for a great lunch.
I always play the Cheese Trader ad, around this time, and it does get the juices flowing and the taste buds pouring.
When that camembert opens on those chips.
It's when he just pops it and it just comes oozing out. It's very, very
It's like an ASMR video, isn't it? That it's like with the voice and the melting of the cheese. He could have his own little YouTube channel with cheese ASMR.
I know.
We should suggest,
guys, go and buy your cheese from the Cheese Trader. 10% discount. You know the drill. All the details are in the bio. And Stu Freestone is a Forest fan, so support fellow Forest fans wherever you can. Forest Rise says, I like a good stilt in me. Yep, I'm in for that, especially at Christmas time. Okay, all right. I want to play you another video now. This is a padded seat review. So we all know about the new corner tower that's gone up at the City Ground. We know that it came under a little bit of, flack from some quarters. Oh, what's it going to look like? And Dear Carby Towers, all that kind of stuff. But we've had the padded seat guys go in and do a review, which I've pulled down from TikTok, and I'm going to upload it here for you to have a look at. So it goes inside the new City Ground Suites. The corner tower is now being reviewed. Take a look at this.
For today's football hospitality, it was off to City Ground, the home of Nottingham Forest, for one of the newest hospitality packages in the Premier League, and it's pretty unique as well. Through the private entrance, and after a lovely welcome, we collected our tickets and matchday programmes, then up to level 3 and into the City Ground suites. And because it is newly built, stunning inside with a modern interior, and a bit more on the views later. But for now, I did collect a welcome drink and tucked into some canapes. I then grabbed a drink before making my way onto the private balcony. Some great views of the River Trent up here, and a suggestion: make sure you bring your sunglasses. Then it was time for some more food, including charcuterie and seafood. And as we tucked in, team sheets were handed out, and we heard from a former player. At this point, blinds did come down for kickoff, then cakes were served at half-time. Can't beat a good donut. Back to pre-kickoff, and I made my way onto the private balcony, past the cameraman, and to a padded seat. And tickets are from €399 per person, depending on the fixture, through Champions Travel. Where should we go for the next padded seat?
So that's the padded seat, and that gave us a really good look at what it's like inside the tower. I mean, I'd love to do corporate hospitality. I'd love to have a go at doing the corner tower. I mean, these prices are up. We know that, and it's possibly a one-off or a present for someone. But just how good did that look, Richard? Do you think? I mean, would you ever foresee yourself, just pushing the boat out a little bit on a special occasion and going for some of that corporate hospitality?
Yeah, probably when I'm no longer got 5 kids in my house. But I would say that absolutely. I mean, that's a pretty VIP experience, right? And the interior looks stunning. So, and as a guy who loves to eat, right, not only cheese, but all the other wonderful goodies that were presented there, I think I'd definitely take advantage of that. It certainly seems like you get a lot of bang for your buck. And the actual view of the pitch was really nice. I guess probably haven't given enough time to the renderings that we had seen previously, but yeah, that is stunning. So, and all the glory that is the City Ground. So yeah, I'd definitely want to try it at least once, just for the,
Yeah, me too. I think tickets are hard to find. It's worth checking out, guys. The club owner, Evangelos Marinakis, has been doing as much as possible to make improvements to the City Ground. I've mentioned before the fascia, the nice red trim that goes throughout. We've got the safe standing now, the corner tower, the improvements to the dugouts and so on. We've talked endlessly about the forthcoming potential changes to the Peter Taylor stand that hopefully will happen within the next 18 months or so. But for the moment, I'm pretty happy with how the City Ground looks. I'm pretty happy with the changes they've made to it. They put effort in. They want us to look good for when people come. We know about the hot water in the stands. To be honest with you, not something that bothers me. We know about other gripes that people have got, but come on, guys. I think the City Ground is hopefully our forever home, as I keep calling it. And any changes that are being made, certainly the big man has got our best interests at heart.
On that container stand, they still don't seem to have opened the top 2 levels the last 2 games I've been there. I don't know if that's... I've got 3 theories. Either they're not quite selling enough tickets, or they're not finished them, or that's where Marinakis has been hiding for his stadium ban. One way or the other, they don't seem to have opened the top 2 levels, so there's still a bit more, hopefully more tickets to come on that.
I think his stadium ban is done now. I counted it done 3, and I think we've had the last 2 games he's done now on his stadium ban. But yeah, I think you're right. It could be that they haven't sold out the top levels yet, but we'll see. I mean, ultimately, it's for those that have. Maybe I got emailed about the new directors one that's in the Peter Taylor stand. I mean, that is up another level. That is a nice seat behind the screen, and the pricing on that is really up there. So if you've got a few £1,000s to spare, then yeah, definitely you can enjoy a Forest game in comfort. All right, so we've got a little bit of time left, and it is Thanksgiving. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me.
This is a little segment on Thanksgiving. I want to ask the guys, what is the one Forest-related thing that you are thankful for this season? So I'm looking for Forest-related, ideally. Of course, you can drop in some other thanks as well. But what is the one Forest-related thing that you are thankful for this season? Have a think about that. Paul, I'll come to you first. Anything in particular, mate?
Win at Liverpool. I'm really thankful for that, for the joy that gave me growing up. And I'm sure we're obviously all of a similar vintage. And yeah, Liverpool was the glory hunters team, wasn't it? And so I've got quite a few mates from be it work or even one or two from back in Nottingham that I was very happy to get in touch with that Saturday evening. So yes, that was the one thing that I'm most thankful for this season was the win at Liverpool, just for the ability to gloat against Liverpool fans for the first time in a very long time. Certainly in terms of away from home, anyway.
Fantastic. Danscape, what about you?
I think it's a little bit generic, but I'm just thankful that we even got to play Arsenal last week and get beat 3-0, I suppose, because we're in the Premier League, and you still have to pinch yourself that we managed to get here somehow to compete with these teams every week, and we are now doing a better job of it. Thanks to the various people behind me here, particularly Willy Bolly, obviously, that we're still in the Premier League, being able to play these games, and just as a thing for families, I go and see my brothers at the games and stuff, and we yes, we do go to a few more games now than we used to in the Championship because we're in the Premier League and things like that. But just to be involved with it is obviously something to continue to be thankful for. Definitely, even when we lose 0, we're in the mix.
It's interesting you say that because on my little kind of plan for the episode, I put down a question that I was going to maybe get to if we had time, and the question is: are we as fans being too nice? Are we guilty a bit of just being pleased to be here? Because, and you mentioned, I'm just happy that we had the chance to go to Arsenal last week and we lost 3-0 and we're in the Premier League. But is that enough now on season 3? Should we be asking more? Should we be expecting more? Should we be expecting, well, look, we've survived season 1 and 2, and season 1 was tough. Season 2 was worse, I think. Now in season 3, should we just be thankful for being in the Premier League?
Thankful, yes. I mean, it doesn't. I think there's more nuance to it than just saying, "Well, I'm thankful here. I'm pleased that we got to play Arsenal, even if we lose." It's not the same mindset that the players and the manager's going to have. As a fan, I think you can afford to have whatever mindset you want. We have the connection with the players, but these are the elite guys that are doing it every day. So they will have a completely different mindset, and that's what matters. And what matters is having the right people in place at the club, as opposed to as a fan just enjoying it. We've got to find enjoyment, otherwise you take the enjoyment away from it. Because I think any other fan scrolling through those results last week, seeing Arsenal beat us 3-0, wouldn't have batted an eyelid at it. They just carried on scrolling. Oh yeah, Arsenal won 3-0 against Forest. That's going to happen. That would happen with another 10 teams in the league. So I think we've got to be careful not to get too bogged down in each result, and still accept that there's some very, very good quality teams in this league, and you don't go a season winning 38 games. You don't go a season without a few bad defeats. So it's perspective, and overall, having you just have to think back to what it felt like after that Stoke game, missing out on the playoffs. I was just convinced at that point we were never going to get to the Premier League. We were cursed. We were going nowhere, and that's why I'm thankful we're here.
Yeah, and I really didn't want to feel like I was asking you to justify that. I just wanted to, it just prompted me to ask that kind of wider question. I mean, how difficult, Paul, I'll come to you in a second, Richard, I haven't forgotten you, but Paul, how difficult is it to strike the balance between supporting the team but demanding more?
Yeah, I think we're within our rights to want more. And I would say more, I mean, sort of, season on season. I think, and I think to be fair, I think we're getting more than what we probably asked for so far this season. So I think we can be happy from that perspective. I'm pretty sure, that obviously wasn't part of your pre-season forecast, but I'm pretty sure most of you were saying, anywhere between 14th and 11th would be a brilliant season, and we're currently exceeding that. So, well, I think we are now definitely in that stage where we none of us would be happy with finishing 16th, 17th, where I think for the first 2 years we were. I think we have definitely moved beyond that level of expectation. Now we're in that next rung, and maybe this is the season where we exceed what we expect. I think clearly, if you think of all the seasons in the last 20 odd years, the Cooper season we obviously exceeded what we expected, and probably not. Maybe the whole Sadbury playoff thing, which was COVID interrupted, we perhaps didn't expect to be quite that close, but obviously, as Dan said, it felt like a bit of a dagger through the heart at the end. So it was ultimately, though it was a good season, it ended in disappointment, didn't it? So yeah, I think the seasons where we've exceeded expectation have been few and far between in the last 20 odd years, and we feel like possibly we're in one of those now. So enjoy it while we can, I think is my sentiment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so it is Thanksgiving in America. Yes, Ian, I know Canada's was last month, so apologies for not including Canada recently on their Thanksgiving month. But we thank you, Ian, because actually you've been a big supporter of us since the very start. So a genuine thanks to you and to everyone else, of course. Richard Spray in America, where it is Thanksgiving today, my friend. Over to you. What is your one thing that you're thankful for in a forest-related sense?
Yeah, it's probably an obvious one, right, Greg? Because if you know about my Forest story, so I'm going to be thankful for a long-time season ticket holder and a great Forest fan for his entire life up until he, passed away in his mid 90s. So Ronald Edward King, my grandfather, was the guy who brought me to the city ground and didn't even attempt to do it, but inadvertently indoctrinated me into this great Forest family because I can't think of a better legacy for me to carry on with him. Because I can tell you, if you sat both of us in the room at the age I'm at now, in his same age, you wouldn't be able to guess that we're related. So he's just a very amazing guy, but he loved Nottingham with his whole heart, and he loved this club with his whole heart. And so if there was ever a thing that we connected on, it was always going to be this. So yeah, my cousin and I are kind of carrying on the torch for Ron King. So yeah, thankful for him because he definitely paved the way for me to get obsessed with this wonderful team that we follow. So that's my number one, I think.
Amazing. For me, I'm going to hopefully not go on too long, but I am going to say this. I'm thankful for this podcast because I've talked about it before. The sense of community, the sense of friendship and brotherhood and sisterhood, with ladies in the comments as well, that this has brought me in my life at a time when I felt like I really needed it, has been absolutely fantastic. It's probably been quite life-changing because, sometimes you can get into a rut in life. Sometimes you can just be coasting along, and it can be one thing that you have in your life that just kickstarts you and gives you a knee in the elbow, a knee in the elbow, an elbow in the ribs to get you kind of moving. It's helped me with my own business and just to kind of like be a bit more sparky with that. It's just got me going, and having the friendships that I've now got with these guys on this panel, Richard in particular. I'm thankful for you, brother, for reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, do you fancy doing a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've wanted to do that probably forever." So I've wanted to do it and thought about doing it, but it needed someone to reach out and say, "Should we do it?" And like, okay, so that was a kick up the backside for that. So this Nottingham Forest related podcast has been fantastic for me, and I'm thankful for all the people that have come on board and been guests so far. We're about 6 months in. We've done just over 40 episodes of match previews, match reviews, and the one with episodes. And we've had some really, every single person's got a different story to tell. We're trying to bring you some interesting, fun and different and wacky segments along the way. And so hopefully there'll be more of those to follow. So yeah, I'm thankful beyond words, beyond imagination for everyone that supported us. And we hope to continue in the new year and build up our numbers. And like I said many, many times previously, we know nothing more about Nottingham Forest than probably any of you. We've all just got an opinion. We've just created a podcast to talk about it. We love the fact that we reach into corners of America, Australia. I was looking at our Spotify and Apple stats, and Malaysia and Poland and the Netherlands and Kenya. We're being listened to in places all over the world, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And like I said, we just want to talk about Nottingham Forest. We love the club. And I've become more obsessed with Forest now than I've ever been. I would say that. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us, being with us. I'll shut up now because I have a habit of going on and getting a bit emotional. So, yeah, it's an amazing thing that we can speak to you guys. And thank you very much for all your help in supporting us along the way. Okay, enough of that. Right, we have just about hit the hour mark. We don't like to go too much past that, but we have got time for this very important message, Richard.
Yeah, so we've been trying to celebrate this. Well, encourage people to think about this more this month, Mental Health Month in November. November is Men's Mental Health Month. We want you to remind every male, not just today, Your life matters, even when things feel hopeless and dark. Don't give up. You've come this far for a reason. You have the strength to get through any inner battle you're facing. And remember, you are never alone. You have a purpose, and people who know you love you, even when your brain tells you otherwise. So I'm thankful for, people like Anna in the comments and other clinicians and other people who have devoted their entire life to supporting people clinically and all other means, and of course plenty of other folks that we interact with, because anyone can give support, anyone could be there for an individual, and I think we're all a part of that as well. I'm sure all the guys on this panel, as well as others that we know who contribute, as well as other podcasts, will agree. DMs are always open, always willing to provide support and love and respect and all else to individuals who are desperately needing that help. So please go get help if you do need it, and please reach out to those like us if you need it, and others.
Fantastic. Mark Hill in the comments says, I'm 60 tomorrow. Happy birthday, Mark Hill, for tomorrow. The big 6-0, buddy. You've popped up many, many times on our streams and been here to watch us. So we wish you a very happy birthday for tomorrow. He says he's thankful to have lived long enough to see us get back in the Premier League. Here, Mark. As I think Dan said in his comments earlier, I don't think any of us ever thought it was going to happen after the likes of Stoke and Yeovil in the past. That was, they were horrible moments. Big Arn said that, you're the chap that saw me at the bar in the Nav. It was nice to say hi to you. He says he didn't want to bore me as I was with Minnie Oram in Orlando. You know what? One thing I meant to do, I should have given you one of our pin badges. So I had a whole load of pin badges on me at the time. So when I'm up next time, if you see me again, please come over and say hello. I'll try and bring some pin badges with me. So yeah, truly grateful for everyone to say hello. Final thoughts quickly then, guys. Paul, anything you want to say before we zip off?
Not particularly, no. Just hope Richard enjoys his turkey later today. So have a good one. Actually, one just thing popped in my head. I was going to say it before, and I don't want to end
one more thing.
Don't want to end on a downer. But funnily enough, you were talking about the stadium earlier, and I think, if my memory serves me rightly, the first game that the Bridgeford stand, as is now, opened was Ipswich at home in the season we got relegated under Cloughie's last season. And I went with my dad, sat in the Bridgeford, and I think we lost 1-0. I think Jason Dazelle scored, so hopefully that doesn't repeat itself. But I'm pretty sure that was the first game the Bridgeford stand was open, was Ipswich at home, back in, must have been October 1992, something like that. So ignore that, we're going to win tomorrow. But just got me reminded. But yeah, Rich, enjoy your turkey, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody else who's celebrating.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Daniel San?
Echo your sentiments about the podcast, Greg. Just to say as well, very much look forward to being on it, and that's definitely something that I'm thankful for in terms of just being able to channel a bit of my energy towards Forest or something, other than just ranting on Twitter, which is great. I think we've got a very good, just in terms of a few stats bits, I think we've got a very good record against Ipswich at home. I was looking back to try and find a game we'd lost, and it's like 2003 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. So another good reason. And obviously, Nuno's yet to lose a game to a promoted side since he's come in as manager. We've only drawn the one, we've won the others, but we're also yet to face a promoted side at the City Ground. So if there are any lingering issues with our home form, this is a good game to completely smash that out of the park, I think. And then just a shout out, because obviously Richard's being a big Friends fan, and the Thanksgiving episodes of Friends are always one of the highlights indeed. So I'm sure he'll be thinking of a few of those moments today.
Yeah, the trifle episode is like one of the best ever. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Richard Spray, give us your final thoughts before you depart to the meat coma of turkey heaven.
Yeah, meat coma and football, American football heaven. So Ian, we're going smoked turkey this time. I would love the deep fried stuff, but I don't think my cholesterol would appreciate that. But I'll go with we're going to go with smoked turkey today. But yeah, I want to say just one thing to recognize about these guys and others that come on. And then another thing that I'm thankful for, sorry, Greg, to dip into that again, but these guys are not only great fans of the club and love them and are brilliant with the kinds of things that they bring and the perspectives they have, they're even better human beings. I think that's one of the most amazing things through this is just to find really good people who I think in this world, there's a lot of good people in the chat, other things, but these guys are at the top of that list. So I appreciate you guys. As they say in Oklahoma, I appreciate y'all.
I'm fine.
I feel like I'm on the edge, mate.
I'm fine. all loud and squeaky, because really, I'm fine.
I love my Friends clips. I had to get them in there. You know that. I got a whole load of them, so any excuse to play them. I'm going to say goodbye to you all by making sure you remember that when we were on the edge of going down into League One, we played against Ipswich and we needed to get a result. And we did get a result, and it was 3-0. A Sombalonga, Chris Cohen, that Jordan Smith save, and a Sombalonga again, I think, got a second that game. So, yeah, lots to play for still. We aren't going to get relegated this season. We're going to go out on Saturday. We're going to have an absolute blast against an Ipswich team that are going to come up for it. We respect them. So any Ipswich fans watching, we respect you. But, of course, we want to beat you. So here's to a fantastic game on Saturday. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Have a great day, a great weekend coming up. And we'll see you next time on Talking Reds.